I knocked down Liu Ruyan right in front of her when I was coming down from the top floor of the hospital. She didn't cry or scream. She simply held Chu Minjiu in her arms. She frowned and sighed, then she turned, hugged the man and left. Later I became a ghost. I have been working with Liu Ruyan for many years. I saw her marry Chu Minjiu. The last two continued to quarrel and ruin their lives, but Liu Ruyan still loved her. Here and below, the original text contains occasional confusion regarding gender. We're changing it to ensure the narrator is a man and Liu Ruyan is a woman. Until there were many people like me around Chu Minjiu, Liu Ruyan did not sit next to them and watch their game. One place is a whole day. In the 8th year of my jump, Chu Minjiu's face was covered. Liu Ruyan was burned alive in the villa. When Liu Ruyan died, Chu Minjiu took her money and raised other women. I tried my best to jump towards Liu Ruyan's grave. Pointing to the elephant on the tombstone, "Look, Liu Ruyan, I told you Chu Minjiu is a vampire. Don't believe me?" Staring at the wall at 3 in the morning. I touched the crazy heart. I'm still alive. This is a long and real despair. It's just a dream, I always sighed. I wiped the cold sweat from my forehead, so angry. Go to his mother. Luckily, he didn't die. Because I used to really love Liu Ruyan, just yesterday. I also played a scene in the play where people are crying and causing trouble. In a few days, I'll be 20. Grandpa will announce at the birthday party that Liu Ruyan and I are engaged, but Grandpa didn't agree. Liu Ruyan said her family had fallen apart. There were many men around her, but I was completely confused. I had to marry him. I remembered this in a dream about my grandfather. Since Liu Ruyan had forced me to jump into the sea, I threw back the blanket and darted into my grandfather's room. The old man was asleep. The blanket was lying on the floor. I picked it up and covered him with it. I squatted down next to the bed, my eyes hurting. "Hello, hello." The old man opened his eyes. He looked at my tear-stained face. I was scared. "Grandpa, you're in the middle of the night. My nose hurts." I just held the old man's leg. The old man sighed, touched my head. "Okay, be good. Tomorrow I'll take off my mask, go to the Liu family and have them arrange your wedding." I was so excited. I suddenly burst into tears. In the dream, I was the one causing the problems, and my grandfather agreed with me. But 3 years after the engagement, Liu Ruyan regretted it. In my dream, he broke the spell on my feet. He stepped on my face, his eyes like knives. "Who are you? How dare you touch Minjiu? I'll break your legs today. Let's see what you can do to him." A cold breath blew down my spine. I stood up boldly and said to my grandfather, "Grandpa, I'm not going to get engaged to Liu Ruyan. I don't love her. I just made a bet with a guy, swore to the devil I was lying. If I can get Liu Ruyan, the guy will give me a copy of the RTX 5090 graphics card." The old man was stunned, and then a loud laugh was heard. A pat on the back. "Because of a broken video card, you dare risk your entire life gambling. I'll give you 5 million. Which card do you want to buy? It's not assigned." I'm in the middle of a thought. I have money I can spend. Why am I flirting with her? Grandpa always gets out of breath. We return to the room. I hold the golden dog on the ground. God of War. The phone suddenly vibrates. The screen flickers. Zhao Mei. My ghost, my mother who was thrown out of the house. I went outside. The phone rang. A woman's voice. "I heard you were going to get engaged to Liu Ruyan." I laughed when I heard that sound. I didn't ask about that in the middle of the night. The phone was on. The tone was quiet. "You're no good for her. She only has Chu Minjiu in her heart." "Of course I know, but I just want to anger her." "How will you know if you don't try? Liu Ruyan likes it when I'm obedient. If you want to come, do whatever you want. If one day you get tired of her, I'll buy you a firecracker. I won't wait for her to start talking nonsense. I'll hang her right now." I'm lying on the carpet, smiling with my God of War belly. God of War, I won't be a dog anymore. Let's eat sweets and drink spicy drinks. We'll live to be 99. The next day I got up early and changed into my tracksuit. I put away the God of War, the dog. Today I made an appointment with a trainer at the boxing club. What happened in the dream seems all too real. I need to get stronger. Walking past the front yard, I stopped in front of a blue wind bush. I used to be a bit slow-witted. I heard that this favorite flower of Liu Ruyan's was given to her by Chu Minjiu, which made him cry for a while. I bought a seedling and planted it in my yard, right in front of Liu Ruyan's villa. Now looking at these flowers, I feel disgust. I walked up and picked a flower. A handful of trash flew into the trash bin. Dirt on my hand. I felt eyes on me from the second-floor balcony. Liu Ruyan, wearing a silk robe, held a cup of coffee. The shadow on her face seemed subdued. That look, it was exactly the same as in the dream when she broke my leg. I looked away. Whistling, I headed to the garage. I had just driven the car out onto the night road outside the gate. I saw Liu Ruyan wearing a formal suit and high heels, standing in the middle of the road with a bag. I honked the horn. She didn't move. I got angry. I knocked on the window. Mrs. Liu ignored me. Liu Ruyan came closer. She looked down at me, asking why my car had been sent to the company, and declared that I should have driven straight ahead instead of calling her a taxi. No need. Liu Ruyan opened the door and climbed behind the wheel. She leaned very close, the scent of her body reaching my nose. For a moment, I turned around and remembered how she had tormented me in my sleep. My hand on the steering wheel tensed, and I grew angry and grabbed my hair. Liu Ruyan, I said, shifting gears. The woman stared at me with a question in her eyes. Where are you going? What does that matter to me? I stepped on the gas and the car shot forward like a beast. I felt like I was in a rally race. Before, to please her, I didn't even dare get behind the wheel myself. Jabata, are you crazy? Drive slowly. Liu Ruyan gripped her seatbelt tightly, her face turning pale. I glanced coldly into the rearview mirror and slammed the pedal to the metal. 5 minutes later, the car stopped abruptly at the metro station. We've arrived, come out. Liu Ruyan's face was pale. She opened the door, gritting her teeth. Jabata, I don't like crazy people. It's none of my business. When she slammed the door, I suddenly jerked away. Smoke billowed from the exhaust pipe and the car disappeared around the corner. Liu Ruyan stood on the side of the road, clutching her bag tightly. A coldness froze in the depths of her eyes. A Mercedes pulled up next to her. The assistant came out and opened the door. Ms. Liu, please come in. You are expected at the Liu Group office. The secretary carefully placed a file on the table. Ms. Liu, this is your engagement contract, signed 6 months ago. Liu Ruyan opened the box. The 2 diamonds were unique. She looked at the ring. But the flowers were still in my head, and that face when it got too hot in the car, the suffocating anxiety. The phone vibrated and the message Minjiu calling appeared on the screen. The sound became slow. Hello Juyan, I heard you're getting engaged to Jabata. Chu Minjiu's voice, full of despondency and sobs, was heard at the end of the line. Liu Ruyan leaned back in her chair and clenched her heart. Yes, Minjiu. Don't begrudge me my lifelong happiness, okay? Jabata doesn't deserve you, Chu Minjiu worried. Liu Ruyan's gaze was cold. Minjiu, this is none of your business. She obeyed the circumstances. Dongshi was the most suitable partner for Lion Ying. Obedient. Dongshi, Chu Minjiu smiled sharply into the phone. Ruyan, he deceived you. You thought he loved you. You thought he was smitten with those bluebells like he was made for you. Liu Ruyan's hands clenched into fists. What do you mean? Chu Minjiu chuckled coldly. I was at the bar last night. I heard Jabata's friend bragging. Jabata didn't agree to the relationship because he loves you. He had an argument with his friends. He bet a broken video card. The lighter in Liu Ruyan's hand cracked. The metal bit into my palm, drawing blood. What did you say? He's a liar. He's treating you like a tool to get loans. Liu Ruyan immediately hung up. She stared at the engagement ring on the table, her chest tightening with rage. He had countless connections. How could she be wrong? When Jabata looked at her, he seemed to feel compassion and love. But this morning's anomaly. The flowers he picked, the cold look, all of this had a reasonable explanation. He no longer loved, or perhaps he felt that gambling had become his steady source of income, and he was too lazy to pretend. Good, great. Liu Ruyan laughed and laughed, her eyes filled with rage. Jabata, since you dared to bet on me, I will play with you until the end. Within 3 months, I grabbed my coat and ran out of the office. I ordered a full buyout of the entire Mouse House brand of video cards. I demanded that this brand be removed from the market by tomorrow. Having dealt with that, I headed to the underground boxing gym. I landed a powerful left hook on the punching bag and immediately continued training. Bang! The projectile slid to the ground and blood dripped from the broken glove. It hurt, but I didn't stop. I wiped away the sweat, even though my vision was already blurring from fatigue. I'd love to have a serious fight if the boss himself came out against me, but the boxing gym closed early today. The trainer reached the phone with difficulty and called the owner in a trembling voice. Boss, we're under attack. Some psycho is smashing up the gym. Yes, that's the same young master from the Jai family. I chuckled to myself. Previously, this frightened little creature had been nothing more than an obedient errand dog for them, but now everything had changed. I went from being a submissive dog to a mad dog ready to bite out anyone's throat. I continued to stretch, waiting for the heavy steel door to open. And just then, when I heard that familiar sound, a chill ran down my spine and that nightmare flashed before my eyes again. I will never forget that sound. In my dream, it was this very iron door that fell on me and broke my legs. I looked up and saw the iron door open. A woman in a black tactical suit and heavy combat boots entered. Short hair, a cold, predatory wolf's gaze, a true queen of the underground arenas. Liu Ruyan's most brutal chain reaction is Yecha. In the dream, it was she who mercilessly broke my legs on her mistress's orders. Yecha lit a cigarette right in front of me and said mockingly, "Mr. Jai, are you itching, or are you tired of living? I'll break everything in you if you dare to mention this again." I clenched my fists so hard my knuckles turned white and stood up abruptly. Yecha only chuckled coldly in response to my anger. I took off my outerwear and stretched my neck. "I heard you think I'm too weak, enough chatter." I rushed forward with the force of a bomb exploding, leaving no time to think. Win or die on the spot. One powerful kick cut through the air, aimed straight at her. Yecha's eyes narrowed in surprise, and a flash of astonishment flashed in them. The heavy metal door creaked and buckled under the impact. Yecha jumped back, shocked by my strength, and a crimson mark remained on my hand. "Interesting." Yecha licked her lips, her eyes blazing with predatory excitement. "It seems Mrs. Liu really did underestimate you. You don't look like a scared dog anymore. You've become dangerous." "Shut up." The pain from the nightmares drove me crazy, fueling my rage. I poured all my fear and pent-up hatred into this fight. We clashed right there in the arena, raining blows down on each other. 5 minutes later, I was covered in blood, spitting from my broken lips, but Yecha looked even worse. She'd taken a powerful blow, fallen to her knees, and couldn't get up. I approached, breathing heavily, and placed my foot on her chest, looking down at her. "Tell Liu Ruyan not to dare touch me again. Next time, I'll break her legs." Yecha coughed up blood, but suddenly burst into a manic laugh. "Jai Bada, did you really think you could escape? Mr. Liu just ordered the complete destruction of your family's business. You won your video card, but you ruined your entire life." Hearing this echo of that very nightmare, I jumped up, grabbed my coat, and rushed for the exit. I had barely left the boxing gym when a whole column of black SUVs blocked my way. The doors opened in unison, and Liu Ruyan stepped out of the car, wearing a strict black suit and high heels, radiating icy authority. The bodyguards immediately surrounded me. She slowly approached me, noticed the blood on my lips, and extended her hand as if to touch my face. I shuddered at the memory. I recoiled and abruptly pushed her hand away. "Don't touch me." Liu Ruyan's hand froze in midair, and a look of genuine confusion flashed in her eyes. She slowly lowered her hand, smiling crookedly, trying to hide the storm of emotions that had washed over her. "You decided to stage this whole spectacle because of some crappy graphics card. You thought you could get away with it just because you were my toy. I'm not done with this game yet, and I'm not going to play your scenarios anymore. Stop trying to control me." "Is that so?" Liu Ruyan took a sharp step forward, closing the distance to a minimum, almost touching me with her nose. Her warm breath mixed with the cold night air, and her voice sounded like a sentence. "Who do you think you are? The game has just begun, and only I can finish it." She grabbed the lapels of my coat with a death grip. "You have exactly 3 months. In 3 months, you will come crawling to me on your knees and beg for mercy. Don't believe me? Try it." I looked her straight in the eyes, not taking a step back. For a second, surprise flashed in her eyes, then turned to rage, and she pushed me away sharply. "The very sight of you makes me sick. Keep dreaming, Liu Ruyan." Pushing aside the bodyguard who tried to block my path, I resolutely moved forward. Liu Ruyan clenched her fists so hard that her long nails dug painfully into her palms, leaving red marks. The bodyguard leaned towards her carefully. "Miss Liu, should I order the return of young Master Jai?" "No need." Liu Ruyan turned sharply and got into the car. "Since he's so eager for freedom, immediately freeze all the Jai family's accounts. Tomorrow morning he'll come to me on his knees." I hadn't even gone 10 meters from the alley when the phone in my pocket began to vibrate with a barrage of notifications. Near the sidewalk, the powerful engine of a sports bike roared, cutting through the silence of the night city. "What's going on?" Just half an hour ago, everything seemed completely different. Liu Group's legal department directly lured people to my company. They merged several companies and forced the acquisition process. My chain of capital investments was originally old, and now it's completely broken. Mouse lit a cigarette there. The sound of a lighter damaging a tire was crystal clear. Not only my house, but also several major projects of the Jai family were shut down due to Liu Ruyan's financial flows. At the bank, everyone was insistently demanding money. A black hole gaped in my chest. In the dream, Liu Ruyan had used this trick too. She used to confuse everyone with money. She forced her victims to get back on their feet. "Mouse, I'm sorry, I got you into trouble. I'll disappear into thin air before I leave your mother's shit alone." Mouse screamed so loudly that the sound of the knife was loud too. The bell rang very loudly. We both grew up in an open-air store. Tell your brother about this. I could see that Liu Ruyan didn't like it. She truly thought she could fill the sky with a sea of money. The sound of the phone ringing, urging him to sign, made Mouse inhale smoke. The tone was very angry. Dad, listen, even if I break my body. Declare bankruptcy, go down to the foot of the bridge to exorcise the devil. I will never let you bow down to that crazy woman. If you come back and try to please her again, I'll break up with you immediately. Didn't wait for me to talk. The mouse immediately hung up. I listened to the sound of the blinds on the phone. I hit the direction sign. The horn rang loudly. Liu Ruyan, do you really think so? We returned to the old house. The yard is so scary. Grandpa was sitting in the living room. He had 2 walnuts in his hand. Several branch managers stepped aside. I remember sweating. The old man from the Liu family is planning to destroy my house. The chain of capital is broken. The stock market opens tomorrow. The stock market price plummeted. Yes, Ms. Liu did it. As long as the young gentleman is willing to admit his mistake, it is not difficult to discuss everything. I stepped out onto the threshold. Several of the officials fell silent. Their gazes darted around. They all rolled out. Grandfather's eyes didn't look up. The air was filled with confusion. Everyone was acting like big shots. It was time to retreat quickly. Only 2 people remained in the room. I walked ahead of my grandfather. I knelt down on the green stone slab. Grandfather, I'm in trouble. Grandfather stopped the walnut in his hand. His astonished eyes stared at me, then looked away. He stood up and walked in front of me. One leg is on my shoulder, not enough strength. I turned around and threw the black card out of the drawer. It hit me in the chest. The Jai family hasn't fallen. I can still weather this storm. Take the money to patch up the hole in the house. The head of the Jai family will never let his grandson be sad. I clutched the black card tightly in my hands, still warm from my body. My eyes were puffy. Grandpa, I will never bow to it. Go out and do what you need to do. I'll take care of it myself. The next morning at 10 a.m., the Liu Group headquarters was decorated. The entire building was decked out. Like a grand celebration. The media room is on the first floor, the secret to long-term and short-term price dynamics. All media representatives from Jinghai City are invited. The big screen is broadcasting an announcement about the acquisition of the electronics division by Liu Group. I'm wearing black. The golden dog stands in my hand on the steps outside the gate. The dog seems to sense my emotions. Looking at the guard at the door, he growled quietly and hoarsely, Jai Shao, you cannot enter. 4 dark-skinned bodyguards instantly blocked their path, the head captain of the bodyguards. He looked at me with a laugh. Ms. Liu ordered it. If Jai Shao comes to the press conference, he'll have to read this humiliating piece of paper at the entrance first. He held out a piece of paper. It was full of words brimming with utter shame. What are young and ignorant people? I'm rushing to Ms. Liu, begging her pardon. I'm looking at this paper. I've been laughing my whole life out. Liu Ruyan, is this the method? I'm letting go of the dog's leash. The dog lunged with insane force, straight at the captain of the bodyguards, more than 100 pounds of pure golden fur. Explosive force, the guard sat down on the steps with his butt. While chaos reigned in the ranks, I stepped on the bodyguard's knee and moved further towards the sound of his scream. The bodyguard fell to the ground. I picked up the rope that was lying around and stepped on his shoulder. I looked out the window and threw open the door. The press room was momentarily silent. Countless flashlights were pointed at me. On a leather sofa in the middle of the room, Liu Ruyan was dressed in a bright red tailored suit. She held a black coffee in her hands and looked down at me, crossing her legs. Chu Minju sat next to me as her assistant, looking at me with great envy and indignation. Jai Bada, you really dare to come? Liu Ruyan took a sip of coffee and put the cup on the table. She headed straight for a spot less than 3 meters away from me. Mrs. Liu was so surprised that I had arrived that she froze. I'm not going to flatter her. I looked at her with my eyes open. Liu Ruyan stood up. She stepped onto the floor of the hall, her heels making a sharp sound. She passed in front of me. Her gaze was cold. All of the Jai family's projects had been halted. The Hao family's company. Now only one empty shell remains. Jai Bada, this is the end of your struggle against me. Liu Ruyan lowered her voice, her tone tinged with arrogance, and she extended a finger. Pointing to an empty space in the middle of the room, she said, now kneel in front of all media representatives. Admit your mistake, please marry me. Maybe I'm in a good mood. I'll leave a loophole for a couple of companies and how. Flashlights flicker around. The reporters look like sharks smelling blood. They listen to the order to move forward. Chu Minjiu opens his mouth behind her. Jai Xiao, it's awkward to bow. Ruyan is already tolerant of you, don't be so shameless. I look at Liu Ruyan's beautiful but cold face. The pain of memories of the past once again tore at my heart. I suddenly burst out laughing. The laughter echoed throughout the vast hall. Everyone in the hall fell silent. Liu Ruyan, are you crazy? I could barely contain my laughter and looked at her. Do you really think you can buy everything with your dirty money? I came here today to tell you something in front of the entire public. I pointed it at her face, and every word hit the mark. Even if I starved to death, I would never marry a woman like you. You're so disgusting that you make me sick. The whole scene froze in shock. The reporter's loud voices nearly turned into a storm. Liu Ruyan's face instantly darkened. The anger in her eyes threatened to burst forth. She's used to everyone obeying her, and she can't stand such humiliation. Okay, great. Liu Ruyan gritted her teeth, her chest heaving with anger. Since you want to die, I'll help you, she waved her hand. Security, pin him to the ground. If he doesn't kneel today, break his legs. A dozen guards with rubber shields moved forward. The dog rushed to my defense, bristling and letting out a wild growl. He defended me to the end. I clenched my fists, ready to fight at any moment. It was at that moment. Suddenly, a deafening roar erupted from above. The sound grew louder and louder, as if the entire building were shaking. The huge window beyond the hall was blown out by the blast from the propellers. The trees in the street were bent in all directions. The cars parked in the square set off their alarms, their tires screeching. Everyone turned and looked up. A heavy, black private helicopter hovered over the square. It had gilded symbols on its body and took up a menacing position in the air directly in front of the Liu Group building. A whirlwind of air scattered everything around. On the first floor of the Liu Group, the advertising stands at the entrance were instantly blown over by the wind. The Liu family's guards were helpless in the face of the new arrivals. They looked confused. The guards were immediately forced to retreat. Then a pair of high-heeled shoes emerged from the helicopter. I subconsciously stepped forward, catching my breath. Her haughty eyes oozed absolute superiority. Liu Ruyan seemed insignificant next to her. Su Ryuxu removed her sunglasses and handed them to her assistant. Su Ryuxu stepped out from the shadows. She stepped onto the red carpet, accompanied by elite bodyguards. She walked confidently into the hall. The crowd parted automatically, creating a wide corridor. No one dared block her path. Su Ryuxu's gaze was fixed on the center of the hall, sweeping everyone with a cold gaze. At that moment, I became clearly aware of what was happening and felt protected. The depths of her eyes held an icy fury toward my tormentors. I was struck by a complex feeling of relief and awe. It was like a savior had appeared. She came to me so quickly that I didn't even have time to react. A familiar, cool scent enveloped me. Su Ryuxu confidently extended her hand and hugged me tightly. Her movements were strong and decisive, yet tinged with a rare tenderness. The dog wagged his tail softly, acknowledging her authority. The whole scene looked incredibly impressive under the flashes of hundreds of cameras. Liu Ruyan's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. She pointed a finger at Su Ryuxu, her voice trembling. Su Mesu, what are you doing? He just... Shut up! Su Ryuxu didn't even glance at Liu Ruyan, only throwing words in her direction with disdain. The lawyer who followed her immediately took out a thick folder of official documents from his briefcase and threw it on the coffee table in front of Liu Ruyan. Ms. Liu, this is an asset transfer agreement, the lawyer said in a perfect tone, adjusting his glasses. An hour ago, Su's Capital bought out a controlling stake and completed the complete takeover of all subsidiaries of the Liu Group. Moreover, Ms. Su has already deposited 100 billion in cash into my company's accounts as investments. From now on, the Su family owns 51% of the shares of the combined structure, and I am now the boss here. Liu Ruyan, as if stunned, grabbed the documents lying on the table and tried to frantically examine them. Impossible, absolutely impossible. A cash flow of 100 billion. How could she have such resources? Liu Ruyan's face turned pale, and her hands began to tremble slightly. The coffee cup next to her tipped over, and black liquid spilled onto her expensive suit, which was lying on the table. Total chaos reigned. The famous bigwig sat in the corners of the room, not daring to breathe. Su Ryuxu finally turned her head and gave Liu Ruyan a look full of deep contempt, as if she was a pile of trash. Nothing is impossible for the Su family, Su Ryuxu said quietly, but her voice sounded like a sentence, crushing everyone with its weight. She turned away and looked at the flashes of countless cameras, squeezing my hand tighter. Raising her chin slightly, she uttered words that shattered the silence like a bomb. Listen up, everyone. Jaibata is the only man I, Su Ryuxu, have been looking for. She wanted to get into esports. I bought all the real estate for her. She wanted to play. I'll play with her. She was protecting her brother. I gave her 100 billion. Su Ryuxu's eyes flashed with cold determination. Liu Ruyan dared to touch a single hair on her head, challenging the entire Su empire. Liu Ruyan, what did you even expect? Superiority, absolute dominance, and a stinging blow to self-esteem. Liu Ruyan's legs gave way, and she collapsed powerlessly onto the sofa. She bit her lip until it bled, overcome with panic and horror. All her previous arrogance crumbled to dust. In front of Su Ryuxu, she looked fragile and helpless like a paper doll. I turned my head sharply. Looking at Su Ryuxu standing next to me, I realized I knew almost nothing about her. I frantically searched through my memories. Even remembering the years from my past life, I was sure that we had never crossed paths with this powerful beauty before. But at that moment, she looked at me with her shining, beautiful eyes. There was no longer any icy coldness in her gaze, only soft light and warmth. As if she'd overcome any obstacles for me, she leaned closer. Her warm breath touched my ear. I've finally found you, my Jai Bao. She had a quiet, slightly hoarse voice. Without waiting for my answer, she gently pulled me toward the helicopter. Over the next half-month, the entire business world of Jinhai was shaken by a powerful earthquake. Su Ryuxu fulfilled her promise. $100 billion fortune swept everything in its path. The mouse company wasn't just reborn, but also directly acquired 3 leading esports studios on the market. I, too, didn't sit idly by and used this favorable wind to develop my own technologies. Since I wasn't going to be anyone's puppet, I decided to become a wolf. I used all the connections of the Jai family, combined with the financial strength of the Su clan. We launched a targeted attack on the Liu Group's key assets. By cutting off the oxygen supply to their suppliers, I bought up their distribution channels, sparing no expense. While they were trying to stabilize the falling market, I methodically destroyed their positions on the exchange. In just 15 days, the Liu Group's market capitalization had plummeted by 1/3. I sat in the director's chair in the new office, looking out the window at the panoramic view. The mouse burst into the office, almost knocking down the heavy door, and laughed joyfully with all his mouth. This is simply unbelievable. Our new system just launched and immediately took 40% of the market share from Liu Group. That crazy Liu Ruyan held an emergency meeting of the top brass yesterday. They say she broke all the cups there. Their company's stock plummeted again. I took a calm sip of black coffee. The bitter taste pleasantly refreshed my mouth and my soul felt cool and light. The game was over, the financial flows were cut off, and spies like Chu Minjiu no longer posed a threat. In the afternoon, a golden invitation was placed on the table. An invitation to a charity event at the Golden Whale Hotel. The phone vibrated, an unknown number was calling. Chu Minjiu's cloying voice answered the line. Jai Shao, did you receive the invitation? Ruyan hasn't been herself lately due to the company's problems. I arranged this dinner specifically to support her. Don't be so cold, be sure to stop by. I lazily twirled the phone in my hands, tapping my finger on the table. Chu Minjiu, what other cheap tricks are you planning? You misunderstood me, Jai Shao. I just want to make amends and clear up any misunderstandings in front of everyone. After all, Ruyan is genuinely concerned. Even if you destroyed the Liu family's business, has your heart really become completely hardened? What nonsense? I didn't even want to listen to this nonsense. At that moment, the office door swung open. Su Ryuxu, wearing high heels and an elegant silver-gray business suit, walked in. Let's go to this reception together, she said. Looking into her cold, confident eyes, I suddenly clearly understood how beautiful and reliable this woman was. At exactly 8 o'clock in the evening, the glittering lobby of the Golden Sea International Hotel was bathed in lights. We entered the hall with Su Ryuxu. For a few seconds, the corridor fell completely silent, and hundreds of eyes turned to us. Su Ryuxu confidently held my hand, walking with the grace and authority of a true queen. Nearby, in the VIP area, Liu Ruyan, a glass of champagne in her hand, watched us with a face distorted with anger. She peered at my hand, which Su Ryuxu and I held together, even though my knuckles were bruised from the hard work. Chu Minjiu stood next to us. The same poison flashed in his eyes, but suddenly his expression changed and he said, "What did you tell her?" Liu Ruyan's face darkened even more, as if she were about to glare at me. I couldn't care less about either of them. I took a bottle of red wine from the waiter and slowly climbed up to the second-floor roof to catch my breath and light a cigarette. The glass door behind me creaked open and a voice called out, "Jai Bada, do you really think you've won?" Chu Minjiu approached, a glass of wine in hand. The poor man's feigned pity was replaced by a mixture of indescribable envy and disgust. I blew a smoke ring from my cigarette, looked at him and laughed quietly. "Liu Ruyan's credit card was blocked, right? And your suit is still old from last year. What's wrong? You don't have anything to eat anymore." My words hit Chu Minjiu's sore spot, causing his entire body to instantly tense up. He took a step forward and challenged, "Don't be so proud. Ruyan is just going through a tough time, but while I'm here, she won't even look at you, and even if Su Ryuksu supports you in Ruyan's eyes, you're still a worthless piece of trash, not even worthy of my boots." I just played the guitar, watching him pretend to be a cool clown. In my nightmares, he often mocked me with his shrill voice, but now all he could do was throw around pathetic words to somehow hide the fear lurking deep inside. "That's it, get out of here and don't ruin my appearance." Chu Minjiu suddenly grinned and looked around, making sure there was no one nearby. He quickly put his hand in his jacket pocket. I narrowed my eyes and my muscles instantly tensed. I thought he was going to do something serious, but he just pulled out 2 small packages of tomato sauce from a fast food place. Under my cold gaze, Chu Minjiu tore open the packages without hesitation and generously smeared the red sauce on his forehead and face. After that, he grabbed his own shirt and pulled it sharply. The button flew off with a clang. "Jai Bada, what are you doing?" I managed to exclaim. "Help!" Chu Minjiu screamed hysterically, feigning incredible pain. Being a strong and resilient guy and standing at the descent to a 10-level revolving staircase, he simply tumbled down like a rag doll. Bang! Chu Minjiu collapsed onto the carpet in the central hall on the first floor, writhing and covered in fake blood from head to toe. The hall immediately erupted in screams. The pleasant music stopped, the guests began to make a frightened noise and jumped to the sides, and Minyu continued to yell louder and louder. Liu Ruyan tore through the crowd like a hurricane and rushed towards the prone Chu Minjiu. "Minjiu, how are you? Don't scare me." She grabbed his hand. Not daring to even touch his own bloody face, Chu Minjiu weakly opened his eyes and tears rolled down his cheeks. "Ruyan, I just wanted to ask Jaishao not to destroy our company," he squeezed out weakly. And he suddenly became furious, accused me of living at someone else's expense, and simply went and pushed me. His voice wavered, after which he demonstratively dropped his head to the side. He closed his eyes and pretended to die. Liu Ruyan raised her head, her eyes bloodshot with rage. Glaring at me with a look full of hatred, she rushed headlong back up the stairs in her high heels. Pointing her finger at me and breaking into a scream, she yelled, "Jai Bada, what a bastard you are. Minjiu's health is already weak and you pushed him with such force. Do you think you'll get away with everything in the Golden Sea just because the Su family is behind you?" I stood calmly on the steps, looking at this woman who had once seemed like the center of the universe. There was almost nothing left in my heart. "Liu Ruyan, are you even in your right mind? You should at least smell this blood before accusing me. You're still picking on me even now." Liu Ruyan was completely out of her mind. She turned sharply to the security guard and screamed at the top of her lungs, "Call the police immediately. I'll make sure this bastard remembers this day for the rest of his life." The socialites surrounding us began to whisper, and the hum of voices in the hall grew louder. I crossed my arms over my chest and didn't even bother making excuses. Wasting words on such nonsense was just a waste of time. At that very moment, a sharp and confident sound of heels was heard from the opposite side of the hall. Tusk, tusk, tusk. The rhythm was leisurely, but it instantly dominated the oppressive atmosphere of the hall. Su Ryuksu walked leisurely through the crowd, holding a glass of red wine in her hand and not stopping for a second. She didn't even look at the clown sprawled on the floor, instead directing her icy gaze straight at Liu Ruyan's eyes, which were blazing with anger. "Miss Liu, are you really so used to shifting blame from sick minds to healthy ones?" Su Ryuksu said with a slight smile. A glass of red wine swung in her graceful hand, and the screen of her phone gleamed clearly in the soft light of the spotlights. The guests held their breath as Su Ryuksu raised her eyebrows slightly, drawing everyone's attention to herself. She handed the glass to the assistant standing behind her and gestured to stop the approaching guards. Taking a miniature storage device from her purse, she confidently connected it to the large screen in the hall, intending to expose the whole truth. The huge LED screen on the main stage suddenly lit up. The charity's promotional video faded, replaced by footage from 4 high-definition CCTV cameras. This security system was based on developments by the company Su, so hacking it was a simple matter. Su Ryuxu raised her head and gave Liu Ruyan a mischievous, mocking smile. "Ms. Liu, I want to show you something very interesting," she said and pressed the play button. The picture quality on the huge screen was impeccable. Even the sound was transmitted perfectly clearly. In the video, I was standing on the balcony smoking a cigarette when Chu Minjiu approached me. He started provoking me, then looked around and pulled a packet of tomato sauce out of his pocket. On the screen, the image was even carefully zoomed in to focus on this special tool. Chu Minjiu poured the sauce on his face and pressed the button to call for help. His piercing scream, his irritated back, everything that was happening looked like a poorly staged performance. The footage clearly showed his distorted and sauce-slick face, which he himself had prepared for this scene. The entire room froze, listening to this sad story told by the actor. 3 seconds later, someone in the room couldn't help but burst out laughing. Soon, a burst of laughter rang out across the room. "Did he use tomato sauce?" came from all sides. "This guy deserves an Oscar and a payout of his gold reserves immediately." He tore his own clothes, he rolled down the stairs himself, a true master of drama. It was a technical trick that nearly made me double over with laughter. How did Chu Minjiu manage to fool Madame Liu for so long? The crowd's laughter blew through him like a withering wind. The anger on Liu Ruyan's face turned to icy stupor. At that moment, Chu Minjiu, who was lying on the floor, opened his eyes. He glanced at the screen and his face instantly turned white. He tried to flinch, grimacing, and muttered, "No, it's not like that. Ruyan, listen to me. This recording is fake. They fabricated everything. It's a trap to cause discord between us." Chu Minjiu shouted in panic, trying to keep Liu Ruyan's attention. Liu Ruyan involuntarily took a step back. She clenched her fists, staring at the sweet sour blood spreading across the floor. I slowly walked down the stairs and stopped in front of Chu Minjiu. "Are you saying the recording is a lie?" I chuckled. "What about this?" I raised my hand and threw a thick folder of documents right in his face. The folder burst open and hundreds of photographs, bank statement printouts, and screenshots of correspondence scattered across the room like snowflakes. They strewn Liu Ruyan's feet. I pointed to one of the sheets lying right at her heel. In a cold tone, I continued. "While you, Chu Minjiu, were extracting pocket money from Liu Ruyan, you managed to support 5 foreign women. A villa in the south, a yacht in the bay, all of this was paid for with credit funds from the Liu group of companies. Even those Hermes bags you gave to your mistresses, the bills for them went straight to Liu headquarters every time I checked." Chu Minjiu's body shook in terror, and Liu Ruyan slowly lowered her head as if petrified. Her gaze fell on a screenshot of the conversation. In the photo, Chu Minjiu was hugging a woman in a revealing outfit. The caption read, "Pay Wenshi, little Liu Ruyan, that fool gave me money again. See you tonight at our house." Attached to the note was a bank transfer for 5 million. It happened on the very day that the Liu company's capital chain collapsed and the grandparents were in despair over their debts. Su Ryuxu walked up to me and stood next to me, finishing the blow. "Furthermore, Ms. Liu, you may not know that half a month ago this man lost 30 million in a Macau casino. This money is just the tip of the iceberg that is mortgaged on the property registered in your name. Tomorrow, the creditors will come to seize the property in Liu's house," she added. Liu Ruyan's face went completely bloodless. Her lips trembled. She tried to say something, but only a strangled wheeze came out. She had been faithful to this man for years, protecting him from my family's attacks, and now her world had collapsed overnight. "Ruyan, don't listen to these lies. I've been set up. I love you, Ruyan." Chu Minjiu, completely exhausted, tried to press his head against her legs. Liu Ruyan didn't move. She sobbed silently, looking down. Looking at these unbearable photographs, at the evidence of his betrayal scattered throughout the room. It was like a knife stabbing her, shattering her faith in the man she had idolized for years. She slowly raised her head and looked at Chu Minjiu. There was no longer any tenderness or pain in her eyes. Instead, a strange, frightening madness froze within them. She looked at the one for whom she was ready to do anything, and one thought was beating in her head. Had she really been nothing but a blind fool all these years? Why did he stay with her, just for revenge on my family? "Get out of the way," she shouted. Liu Ruyan furiously kicked Chu Minjiu in the chest with her heel. He howled in pain, and her limited edition handbag, which had cost a fortune, fell to the floor with a clatter. I didn't wait for the ending and silently left the banquet hall, not wanting to watch this scene any longer. I had a glass of red wine in my hand, and Su Ryuksu walked beside me, smiling contentedly. Good news, the show is just beginning. That same night, Liu Ruyan's temperature rose to 40 degrees Celsius in the VIP ward of a city hospital, and that was only the beginning of her downfall. He sank into a heavy, endless sleep, reminiscent of a deep spiritual lake from which it was impossible to find a way out. In this nightmare, flames from the sky engulfed the family villa. The burning sensation scorched the skin, and Chu Minju stood at the exit. A pure gold lighter swayed lazily in his hand, and his once gentle and elegant face was distorted into a demonic grimace. Old woman, I've already transferred all your money to my accounts. Go and burn here in silence, he laughed maliciously. The scoundrel turned around, jumped into a sports car, and disappeared, leaving behind only clouds of acrid smoke on the cold ground. Liu Ruyan was trapped under the rubble, his lungs filled with choking smoke. Just when his life seemed over, the villa door suddenly burst open. It was me, covered in blood, with a shattered leg dragging along the floor, crawling through the fire to save her. My clothes were burned to ashes, my skin was damaged, and blood mixed with tears dripping onto the wounds. With all my strength, I tried to pull away the heavy beams, protecting her with my own life. Ruyan, don't be afraid, I'll pull you out. No. Liu Ruyan jumped out of bed with a scream. Cold sweat soaked through his silk pajamas, and his heart was clenched with unbearable pain. It felt like an invisible death grip was still squeezing his chest. Breathing heavily and raggedly, he realized this was not just a dream. A searing pain in his chest and gnawing remorse became his new reality. With trembling fingers, he grabbed the phone by the bedside and immediately called 4 private detectives. Listen carefully. Go through every damn document, dig up Chu Minjiu's entire background for the past few years. Even if I have to dig a third time, I want to see his true face and find that damn accounting. 3 days later, a heavy packet of documents landed on Liu Ruyan's bedside table. The detective's face was grim and tense, and he sighed heavily. Mr. Liu, Chu Minju not only spent your money left and right, but also bought a hidden villa in the suburbs where he kept a whole retinue of young men. Liu Ruyan's pupils narrowed as he stared silently at the photographs the detective poured out before him. The expressions on these people's faces, their postures, and even the way they spoke were all painfully reminiscent of how I behaved. It turned out that Chu Minju forced them to imitate my style of clothing, behavior, and even have the exact same hairstyle. Liu Ruyan's fingers went numb as he turned over another photo. In the photograph, Chu Minju held a leather belt in his hands with a manic grin, looking at the guy copying my image. His eyes were filled with both servile pleasure and burning envy. This is how he flattered his puny ego and asserted himself at the expense of others. In addition, the folder contained an encrypted report on the recent withdrawal of key technological assets from the Liu company. Last night, Chu Minjiu, through the Airshell Front Company, finally siphoned off the remaining funds from the Liu Group's current accounts. All that remained of the once mighty empire was a pile of ruins, ready to collapse at any moment. Documents were scattered across the floor. Liu Ruyan clutched his chest. Words of passionate love and that terrifying sea of fire came flooding back to him. The old blind faith was shattered into pieces, leaving only rusty fragments. He mistook a real parasite for true love, indulged his whims, and personally destroyed the only man who truly loved him. I myself pushed you into endless hell. Jai Bada, forgive me, he whispered in despair. I'm sorry. Lying on the bed, he bit his lips until they bled, sobbing out loud like an abandoned dog. And at this very time, on the top floor of a ruined tech office, I stood by the picture window, looking out at the night lights of the Golden Sea. Su Ryuksu lazily leaned back on the sofa, scrolling through her tablet. Chu Minjiu has already realized that Liu Ruyan is digging under him and is about to run away. But all his foreign accounts are blocked thanks to my connections. I turned to face her. A chill froze in my eyes. This rat tried to jump over the wall, but there would be a price to pay. Money was only a modest price for those broken bones. I never step on the same rake twice, especially since this bastard has already managed to squander 50 million on underground markets. Su Ryuksu rose from the sofa. By midnight, the city villa was fully prepared for the final act. The moment of reckoning was approaching. I only smiled coldly in response. Taking a black army knife from my belt, I lazily ran my finger along the blade, then glanced briefly at the door. Time to harvest. Outside, the night wind howled, tearing leaves from the trees, and clouds thickened above the city villa. 3 unremarkable vans pulled up silently to the rear wall of the mansion. About a dozen masked mercenaries armed with knives and stun guns deftly jumped over the fence and moved towards the main entrance. Their goal was to carry out the order, to break the mistress's legs and take away everything valuable. The tip of a knife slid across the sheet as one of the scouts burst into the bedroom, but there was no one on the bed. I sat quietly in the shade at the foot of the stairs leading to the second floor. The lighter flickered quietly in my hand. A cold smile froze on my lips as I watched these uninvited guests with wide eyes. Before the lead mercenary could take a single step, a blade flashed in the darkness, without a single shot sound. At that very moment, bright spotlights flashed throughout the house, blinding the assassins. Dozens of professional bodyguards in black tactical uniforms rushed out of hiding places in unison. A chorus of muffled pops echoed through the silencers, and the mercenaries collapsed to the floor one after another. I, buttoning my jacket, slowly stepped forward toward the finale. I walked a tightrope, my hands stained with blood. Because of your rat who descended on the water, I dare to touch my people. Ryuksu twisted his neck, shook her arms, and fired. The fight was over in less than 3 minutes. More than a dozen killers were beaten to death. Their bodies lay in the stream. The smell of blood was in the air. I walked up to the one with the knife in his face and stepped on his chest. I put my hand on his neck. "Where is Chu Minjiu?" The man clutching the knife was shaking with fear and almost urinating in terror, and his voice was trembling. He replied that at 2 o'clock in the morning in an abandoned port in the eastern suburbs, he was planning to escape from the city by boat that day. The sea breeze was thick with pungent scents. Chu Minjiu took the black code and hurried across the bridge. The distant express train's engine roared, a bright light flashed, shattering the night's darkness. He was dead and buried in the ground. 5 police cars responded to the call and surrounded the port. Ryuksu and I walked down from the night car. We were in a great hurry. Chu Minjiu's legs gave way and he knelt for a long time. He fell and the gold bars he was carrying scattered across the ground. He was suspected of involvement in the crime. He was accused of fraud and murder. I walked right in front of him, looking down at him like he was some lowlife from the gutter. He chuckled. "Chu Minjiu, you should think about yourself in the next life. No, you won't catch me. I'm Liu Ruyan's fiancé. You're setting me up." Chu Minjiu screamed like crazy and stepped back, but 2 special police officers had already appeared in front of him. To test his hands, cold handcuffs clamped around his wrists. "Be honest," the special police officer kicked him in the knee. He was forced to his feet and dragged into a police car like a common pig. The police and the circumstances completely shattered all his dreams. The 3-day lull was replaced by a sudden storm. Television news reported the collapse of Liu Group's capital chain and the loss of key assets. Bankruptcy was officially declared, and all assets in the name of Chairman Liu Ruyan were seized. I was sitting relaxed in slippers on a real leather sofa in the God of War villa when Ryuksu approached with 2 cups of mulled wine. I picked up a glass of wine and glanced out the window. Then I picked up 9 more glasses and went back to the window. A heavy iron fragment knocked down the door and Liu Ruyan rushed inside, completely soaking wet. Her once luxurious, expensive suit, a symbol of power and status, was covered in dirt, and her hair was stuck to her pale face. The once powerful, influential, and irreplaceable first female president of Jinhai now looked like a beggar clinging to the threshold. She knelt down right in front of the villa's door and raised her head sharply. Her forehead was smashed against the stone slab at the entrance to the chicken coop, mixed with dirt and sand. "Please, I was wrong. Please just look at me." The storm raged outside, but it could not drown out her desperate scream as she hit her head again. Drops of blood mixed with the rain flowed down her face, reflecting surprise. "I remember everything, that fire in my past life. You saved me. I was deceived by Chu Minjiu. I was blind and caused you so much pain. Will you forgive me? Let's start over. I will listen to you in everything. I will become your servant." I watched this scene coldly, threw my head back, finished my red wine, and took a black umbrella from the table. Ryuksu followed me, naturally taking my hand. The heavy door opened. I opened the black umbrella, hugged Ryuksu tightly, and walked step by step towards the iron gate. Hearing the footsteps, Liu Ruyan raised her head and looked at me and Ryuksu. Her gaze was full of pain and jealousy. Clutching her hands and feet at the iron bars of the gate, she pulled herself through the barbed wire. She tried to touch me. "Darling, I'm in your heart, right? You used to love me so much. You stood in the yard when the cool wind blew. You were ready to give your life for me. You're just angry with me, right? She was sobbing and her eyes were filled with tears. All I felt was utter bewilderment. Taking a half step back, I tried to avoid her dirt-covered hands. Rain poured down on the black valley. From my height, I looked down at the woman lying in the mud. The pain from the broken leg and the despair from the body that had once burned had finally subsided. All that remained was cold indifference. Looking straight into her eyes, I stepped on her broken leg with my heel. Step by step, even the motionless phoenix ring on her finger filled me with disgust. Liu Ruyan trembled like a spark about to melt, her mouth opening silently. But she couldn't make a sound anymore. I turned around, patted Su Ryuxu on the shoulder, and said there was no turning back. We approached the warm door and I heard a loud bang. The heavy iron door slammed shut, completely cutting off the downpour outside and Liu Ruyan's angry cries. I threw my umbrella at the entrance, took off my jacket, and washed off all the dirt with water. A warm, dry towel handed to me by Su Ryuxu and the rainwater washed off my feet. I had myself in order. Wasting time on madmen no longer made sense. I took a towel and wiped my hands. The fire was excruciating, and with it came the humiliation of a broken leg. Just now, I saw Liu Ruyan kneel in the mud and bow. The smoke has completely cleared. I don't hate her anymore. Because she doesn't even have the right to hate me right now. The phone in my pocket is shaking. Heiazi's huge voice pierces my ear. My chest hurts as if there's a large chunk of my heart in there. Chu Minjiu's grandson was sentenced. Plants were confiscated, large-scale fraud was uncovered, and those involved in the murders were identified. He was punished for his crimes and sentenced to life imprisonment. His life had been completely destroyed by prison bars. I went to the bar and poured myself half a glass of ice water. He walked in, but his cellmates clearly weren't going to care about him. Then I must say, Mouse laughed evilly. Do you remember? Now I have to wipe my face every now and then. The slowest movement is one stroke. I heard he shed 2 tears yesterday. Lying on the cold floor, he doesn't even dare squeak. He's dying. I throw my head back and drink ice water from the can. My throat tightens from the cold. Let him live well. It's too easy for him to just die. I hang up. The living room is quiet. My dog, who looks like the god of war, is lying by the fireplace. A monotonous snore echoed. The yellow flame flickered in the fireplace. Su Ryuxu brought 2 cups of hot milk, warming up the chilly autumn clothes. She handed me a cup. She didn't sit on the sofa as usual, but settled comfortably next to me. Her long legs are tucked into her chest, her chin resting on her knees. She gazes thoughtfully into the fire in the fireplace. Her gaze suddenly becomes very deep. I always feel like I appeared here in a completely inexplicable way, Su Ryuxu said quietly. The voice sounded incredibly soft in the quiet living room. I turned and looked at her, admiring her beauty. The pain subsides, considering the wealth and high position of the Su family. How could I have this scar? I'm not one of those girls who got the best of everything from childhood. Su Ryuxu extended her fingers. She touched the scar gently and her voice sounded as if it came from another time and space. In my past life, I was just an unremarkable girl. I was shocked when I looked into her eyes. Past life. That winter, there was heavy snowfall in Jinghai, and I developed a high fever. Hunger tormented me for 3 days and 3 nights. I lay under a bridge among a pile of rubble, waiting to die. Su Ryuxu's eyes quickly turned red and tears glistened on her eyelashes. Everyone thought I was dirty and avoided me, she said, turning her head slightly. She looks at me, tears dripping onto her hands. You were wearing a black windbreaker that day. You came to me and threw your big jacket over me. You treated me to a hot meal, gave me a gift, gently stroked my head and said, "Little girl, your life is yours alone. Don't give up so easily. Move on." I sat motionless, my brain racing as my past life flashed before my eyes. And then it dawned on me, it was the time of my first major argument with Liu Ruyan. I was freezing outside and accidentally saved a dying little beggar. Later, lost in thoughts of Liu Ruyan, I completely forgot about this incident. Soon after, a true family found me. I stubbornly climbed my way up, stepping over countless competitors, and eventually took the place of the family head. Su Ryuxu's voice trembled violently. She grabbed my wrist tightly with her slender hands. Her nails almost dug into my skin. I brought the entire Su family with me to find you and thank you, but all I saw. Is this your burnt body? She suddenly leaned forward, burying her face in my chest and crying quietly. I grabbed her tightly around the waist with both arms. I let her cry, feeling her pain hammering at my heart. I looked down at her. The woman who held a vast empire in her hands now looked like a fragile and frightened girl, trembling from the horror she had just experienced. the kindness I had once shown. It became her main meaning in life and an obsession. I slowly raised my hand and put my arm around her shoulders and hugged her. My chin touched her hair and the faint, cool scent of snow wafted around me. Don't cry, my dear. I'm already here. I won't let anyone hurt you again. Su Ryuksu raised her head and looked at me with tears in her eyes. Her beautiful eyes shone so brightly that it seemed they could melt any ice. She sighed. She cupped my face with both her hands, closed her eyes, and kissed me softly, without a shadow of doubt or hesitation. This spark of tenderness and the feelings that had accumulated over a long time made me finally give in. I pulled her close and kissed her back. Outside, the heavy rain continued to rage, but the temperature in the room rose inexorably, foreshadowing a long and happy life together. Seychelles Private Island. The marriage between me and the Jinquin Su family directly impacted this entire vast island. This global wedding, which shook the entire planet, opened everyone's eyes again. 12 heavy helicopters flew over the island. Millions of Bulgarian rose petals fell from above. The entire island was illuminated in a romantic, rich red light. I was wearing a white silk shirt, handmade and custom-made in Italy. Standing at the back of the flower-decorated stage, Grandpa Su sat in the main seat and smiled warmly. Instead of the usual trinkets, he held a pair of elegant shoes in his hand. Heihachi was dressed in his best clothes and stood next to me. I shook his hand, signifying the wedding. Su Ryuksu wore a dazzling wedding dress adorned with 9,999 South African diamonds. Wielding the legendary diamond crown of the Su family, she patted Grandpa Su's hand and walked towards me step by step. The sea breeze fluttered her veil. Her beautiful face shone with the pride of a true queen. Her eyes held that incredible tenderness that was meant only for me. Grandpa Su respectfully extended her hand to me and said, "Bada, my granddaughter is a girl with character. In the future, you should be more gentle and generous with her." The old man patted me on the shoulder, and I firmly squeezed Su Ryuksu's hand. I intertwined our fingers and replied, "Grandpa, don't worry, I will protect her with my life." Then came the most sensitive part, the exchange of rings. At the same moment, hundreds of platforms launched live broadcasts. Thousands of internet users burst into the stream, instantly filling the screen with an endless stream of comments. Su Ryuksu didn't rush to put the ring on me. Instead, she turned and carefully took the microphone from her mother. Her voice echoed across the audience and countless camera lenses. "Today is our wedding day. According to the Su family's rules, the bride must give her main gift." At her slight signal, a huge projection screen behind the stage immediately lit up. An official document from the legal giant appeared on it, showing an asset transfer agreement. I declare that the Su Group, which owns thousands of valuable assets, including all major technology patents, overseas trust funds, and global real estate, now belong to my husband. From this day forward, everything is unconditionally transferred to Mr. Bud's name. For a moment, it seemed as if the entire world around us froze. The entire wedding venue erupted in emotion the next second. Guests were completely stunned, then burst into thunderous applause. The live stream began to lag under the enormous traffic. Comments were filled with enthusiasm. "Oh my God, this isn't just Mr. Su's wedding, it's a triumph. This is a true transfer of a business empire into the hands of a loved one." Everyone was joking that I'd hit the jackpot in life. I looked at the woman standing in front of me and shook my head with a smile. "You just gave me your entire empire. Who will provide for our family in the future?" Su Ryuksu slyly hugged my neck, smiling like a sly fox. "Jai is now officially the richest man, so you will be the one to support me." I gently pulled her towards me, holding her tightly around her slender waist. In the night sky, a squadron of drones instantly reformed into new shapes, creating glowing patterns. I heard a loud whisper all around, and then the festive fireworks exploded into thousands of bright sparks. The sounds of music and celebration mixed together. The hum of voices grew louder. There was continuous noise all around. The sounds merged into a single hum. The echo of the celebration was heard from everywhere. There was a deafening bustle all around. Suddenly, the illusory ringing stopped, replaced by the barking of stray dogs fighting over a scrap of food near the trash cans. One of them growled angrily, narrowly missing the other's paw. Liu Ruyan screamed in fear and desperately hit the stray dog on the head with a heavy object. Half a brick fell with a crash onto the dirty asphalt. The dog yelped in fear and ran away, sinking into a muddy puddle. Liu Ruyan, with trembling hands, tried to pick up a dirty piece of bread from the ground. He wore dirty, torn clothes and his eyes were filled with madness. The contrast between the luxury on screen and his poverty was jarring. On screen, they were celebrating the wedding of the heir to the Su Empire, but here, Liu Ruyan's cheap bun fell ingloriously into the mud. He stared convulsively at the enormous outdoor screen. His pupils narrowed to pinpoints and his face distorted. The man on the screen was bathed in the rays of universal happiness and love. Memories of his past life surged through his head like a merciless meat grinder, tearing his brain apart from the inside. He remembered the boy who had steadfastly weathered any storm. The boy he'd brutally beaten, but who, even under the blows, gritted his teeth and proudly refused to beg for mercy. The one who, in the burning jungle, doused the flames with his own blood, saving a fallen comrade. Liu Ruyan's fingers, coated in black mud, dug desperately into the cracked concrete. His nails were torn to the point of bleeding, and crimson fluid oozed from his fingers. With his own hands, he had once destroyed the life of the only person who truly loved him. Having betrayed and trampled genuine feelings for the sake of illusory gain, he lost everything. Ultimately, the broken man died alone on the cold sidewalk. Ha-ha-ha-ha, Liu Ruyan suddenly threw his head back. A terrible, heartrending, desperate laugh erupted from his chest, echoing throughout the empty, abandoned station. This cry was more terrifying than the screams of ghosts. He staggered up from the mud and rushed straight to the huge screen, his fingers scratching the cold surface. "This is mine. This was supposed to be my man. Give him back to me." He completely lost his mind, waving his arms hysterically and trying to grasp the unattainable image of his loved one on the screen. His legs gave way, he slipped on level ground and fell straight into a fetid puddle. The pungent smell of sewage immediately assaulted his nose. He didn't even try to get up, he simply lay face down in the mud, clutching his head convulsively with both hands. Streams of rainwater washed the dirt from his body, but they were unable to wash away the all-consuming feeling of regret, guilt, and fatigue that had drunkenly soaked every bone in his body.